Hi everyone, Glenn Dibley here from Fairway Financial Advice. You guys are in for a treat today. I've got Dan here as well. We're doing money myths. And so when Dan and I want to put this together, there's certainly plenty of money myths. And as a financial planner and Dan working with small businesses, is that we hear a lot of money myths. One in particular, Dan, that I do hear is that the barbecue talk around superannuation is this risky area. You know, it's got things like shares and property and things like that in there. And I think a lot of people do miss out on the tax advantages of actually making a contribution before the end of the financial year in super and get a good deduction for that money. But they're worried about the risk. But at the end of the day, from a perspective of superannuation, it's a tax structure, yeah? So just explain a little bit what you do, Dan, around your business, and then we'll talk a bit more about the idea about super.
Yeah, absolutely, Glenn. Thanks very much. So my name is Dan. I'm from Edge Small Business Consulting. So we really specialise in small business around their bookkeeping and consulting needs. And super is always a hot topic for us. And one of the biggest things that we hear with businesses is that they're reliant on the sale of their business at the end of the lifespan of it. As a retirement strategy. And, you know, you talk about risk before, like that's super risk. I mean, look at the times right now where a lot of businesses have being valued back to zero. So it's not wholly and solely a fantastic strategy to rely on as far as risk goes. I mean, at the end of the day, you will eventually sell those businesses for a decent money, but you've also got to have a backup if you don't. And there are ways and means around that, and that's by contributing as well at the same time. So as you go along, to actually contribute little bits and pieces on the way to make sure you do have some super sitting there, not just reliant on the sale of your business.
So on that point, Dan, is that obviously with this video recording at the moment, we're near the end of the financial year, a few weeks out, is that sometimes with businesses, they have a really hot start at the start of the financial year, and then it really gets a bit cold at the end. So obviously with that is that you could say, well, you know, should I have put money in on a regular basis, or should I have done it at the end and waited just before the end of the financial year? Because the crucial thing is that you've got to get it in before the 30th of June.
Absolutely. And in order, as I'm sure you're aware, to get the tax deduction, the super funds actually have had to have received it. So it's all, you can't sort of put it through on the 30th of June with a hope and a prayer. It's a few days beforehand. So
you'll stress us out.
Yeah, that's it. So I mean, there's all sorts of strategies I sort of advise clients around. You know, there's things like I guess whether you regularly contribute to your super fund. So me, for example, I just put a few bucks in each week just to make sure things are ticking over, and that helps things like, as you know, insurances and all that kind of stuff, covers off those kind of items. But it also means that you're constantly contributing to super. And then at the end of the period, what you'll do is you might be putting away an additional amount into, whether that be a separate bank account or something along those lines, in order for you to make that call at the end of the year, depending on what your profit is, and make a few more tax planning decisions around whether you actually need to contribute that amount to super or not, and obviously where your concessional caps and everything lie as well. So there's all sorts of strategies that we can help with in terms of, you know, what percentages to put away with regards to GST and BASs and things, in order to help you save through the year as well.
Because the thing is that having your finger on the pulse and of where your money's going, and I know this in the sense of talking to clients when, you know, they're talking about their household spending. If there's issues with the budget and stuff like that, it's because they just haven't got their finger on the pulse of where all their money's going. And so from a perspective with a business, it's absolutely the same. Numbers might be a little bit bigger, but you've got, you know, you could have employees that you're trying to pay, you've got GST, you've got all sorts of things. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, you've got a really nifty way how you do that. So, and I think at the end of the day, guys, is that really just taking the time out, talking to professionals like Dan and I, and getting a bit of advice there. Barbecues are really great to catch up with and stuff, but if you want really good professional advice, it's always good to speak to someone that really knows their stuff. Would you agree, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a lot of different schemes and plans, and it's always good to get them at least covered off by a professional, because a lot of things are getting very easy these days around programs like Xero and everything like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, your finance professionals are the ones that have spent the time, that understand the rules, that can be really complex at times. So it's really important, and a lot of the time it's a really good investment to go and see professionals like us, and I get those schemes covered off, as it were.
Yeah, because the thing is, like with the Xero and stuff like that, is that like they're really good software tools, but you got to know how to use it as well. So despite the fact that you'd have it all there, if you're not using it properly or taking advantage of it, you know, you're really missing out in that regard. So a couple of myths there. Hey, Dan, just to wrap up, is that superannuation is not necessarily has to be risky. It's first and foremost, it's a simple tax structure. Tax structure is basically 15%. So you can put money into superannuation and you're in that tax structure. And the other important thing as well is that despite the fact that we love our businesses, don't we, Dan? But like, you've got to have other assets for retirement as well, hey?
Absolutely, and diversification. I'm sure you sprout that quite
Yeah.
regularly, Glenn. And business is a fantastic asset to have at the end of the time, but you don't want to put all your eggs in that one basket. So absolutely agree, Glenn.
Yeah. Excellent. Well done, Dan. Thanks, mate. And we'll talk soon. See you, mate.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Bye.